Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing really well. Today we are going to be reviewing the L'Oreal True Match Nude Tinted Serum. I'm really excited about this. I have been using it for a few weeks already. I don't like to do first impressions when it comes to foundations because I think there's a lot of different ways you can apply foundation, different primers, etc, etc. So yeah, I do like to test them out for a little bit before hopping on here and sharing my thoughts. So I'm going to show you how I best like to apply the foundation and just my thoughts, pros and cons. There's things I like, there's things I definitely don't like about the foundation as well, and we'll get into those. This retails between £13 and £14, depending on what retailer you purchase the foundation from. The price might differ slightly, and it is obviously Black Friday weekend and Cyber Monday at the moment, so you can probably get a little discount if you look hard enough. So yeah, £13 to £14 is a little bit more expensive than the original True Match foundation. I believe that one retails for about £10. So I'm not sure why they up the price a little bit, but hey ho, it's still, you know, fairly affordable. I personally picked mine up from ASOS. I found that they had pretty much all of the shades in stock, and I do get next day delivery with ASOS as well, so that just benefited me. But obviously with L'Oreal, you know, you can find it at all sorts of places. Really accessible brand. So from the name, Plumping Tinted Serum Foundation. It's not even a foundation, it just says Plumping Tinted Serum. So there we go. 1% pure hyaluronic acid. I was really expecting this to be somewhere between the Glossier Skin Tint and the MAC Face and Body. So I was expecting it to be very liquidy and fluid, which it is. But I was expecting it to be a little bit lighter on the skin, kind of light coverage. I wasn't expecting it to pack too much of a punch, especially because the original foundation is quite a medium to buildable coverage. So I thought, you know, for them to release a tinted serum in the same range, it's going to have to be quite a bit lighter than the foundation to warrant having both in their lineup, if you see what I mean. So that's what I was expecting. I was really hoping that it was going to be a dupe for this Givenchy foundation, which has been one of my favourite discoveries of this year. It's a beautiful foundation, very lightweight. I would say this feels a little bit more serum-like than the L'Oreal, but the L'Oreal does definitely still feel nice and lightweight. It's not heavy, and it does do a really good job of plumping and smoothing out the skin as well. The other thing that surprised me, just before we go into application, I am going to run through pros and cons initially, and then we'll get into applying it. The other thing that surprised me was how long lasting this foundation is. I thought because it is more of a tinted serum, it's a bit more liquidy, you know, it's going to wear nicely throughout the day, but I didn't expect it to wear for the whole day. And I've, you know, applied this at 7:30 in the morning, gone to work, I've come home at about 6, and it still looks pretty nice and fresh and luminous. My oils do tend to seep through a little bit, but it's nothing too crazy, nothing out of the ordinary, and the foundation is definitely still there by the end of the day. So that was really surprising. I was also surprised at how much coverage this gives. It's not a full coverage foundation by any stretch of the imagination, but it does give you a really nice medium coverage, light to medium, I would say. And again, I was expecting it to be quite light, quite sheer, and more like a tinted moisturiser. I guess because it says tinted serum, you do kind of think it will be just like a tinted moisturiser, in the fact that it'll be quite an emollient formula, quite light, you know, quite sheer, and it'll just give your skin a really nice glow. But this did definitely perform more like a typical, you know, traditional light to medium coverage foundation. It's definitely more of a satin finish. It does give a really nice glow to the skin. I do have highlight on at the moment, but yeah, again, it wasn't as emollient, it wasn't as dewy and radiant as I was maybe expecting it to be. So some things I don't like. I think the shade range is really bizarre. They don't claim on the website that it is a sheer formula. They do say that it's medium coverage, but they only released about 9 shades. So to compare that to the original foundation, which I think has 30 to 40 shades, and again, that is a medium to full coverage foundation, and it's in their True Match line, which is obviously known for having a really inclusive shade range. So I don't know why they only released 9 shades. It just seems a bit weird to me. And the shade that I picked isn't isn't quite right. I could have maybe gone with the lighter shade in the range. So that's just something to bear in mind if you are looking to try anything from the True Match line, and you are worried about getting the correct shade. I would just go for the original foundation because they have amazing shades, really good and thoughtful undertones as well, which again is hard in a drugstore foundation. So yeah, the fact that they only released 9 shades was a bit disappointing, it was a bit strange. The other thing that kind of annoyed me is the packaging. So it has this kind of dropper pipette applicator, and it just doesn't really work very well. It's quite messy. You have to be really careful when you're putting the lid back on because otherwise the foundation will kind of goop over the sides. So that's a bit annoying. I would have definitely preferred just like a pump like the original, or even, you know, a squeezy tube. Something like the Glossier Skin Tint, which is just in a really easy squeezable tube. I just don't really like the pipette applicator for a foundation because most of the time it's just too thick and the product won't actually disperse out of the dropper properly. You do end up just swiping it across your skin, which obviously isn't very hygienic because it's touching your skin and then you're putting it back in the bottle and blah blah blah. Yeah, not my favourite application method there, but there we go. That's just a small con, I suppose. So that is just kind of a quick overview. We will get into the application now, and I do like to use a damp sponge because I do find that that just gives me an extra bit of hydration, presses the product in really nicely into the skin, and it just leaves it looking really natural. So I just So I've just applied moisturiser, which is why my skin is looking a tiny bit red at the moment, and we're just going to go straight in with the foundation. It has a dropper applicator. Not my favourite. I think it gets quite messy and it doesn't actually drop the product out, so you do just end up swiping it across your skin. Now the shade, so I have 2 to 3 light, and yeah, it's a little bit darker than what I was hoping for, and there is only 1 shade lighter, which again kind of surprised me because I'm not typically the lightest shade in a foundation range. But you can definitely see that this is the 2nd shade, and it is pulling a little bit warm and a little bit dark on my skin tone. I'm just using a damp sponge to blend it in, and I would say that typically a damp sponge works really well for most foundations because it does really press the product into the skin, and it doesn't leave it looking too heavy or too cakey or anything like that. So it's super quick to blend in. It's quite a fluid formula, but it does give you quite a bit more coverage than what I was expecting. As I said, I was expecting something like the Glossier Skin Tint or the Givenchy Skincare and Glow foundation. Those two are very fluid and really do blend in so effortlessly into the skin. Those ones give more of a sheer to kind of light coverage, which is definitely what I was expecting from this. But as you can see, it does give a little bit more than that. I'm going to add 1 more layer. And you can kind of see like the little pipette doesn't actually do anything. So I'm just going to go in with 1 more layer so you can see how it builds. I probably wouldn't build the foundation up too much because it is very dewy, as you can see. And so I think the more layers you add, I think it's just going to get a little bit too slippery and maybe a bit too oily. So I would do 1 to 2 layers at most, and then obviously you can set it with the powder if that is just a bit too dewy for you. But that's the kind of finish on the skin. Yeah, so you can see that's covered my redness quite well, and I am filming in pretty much natural light. I do have a big window here, so hopefully you can kind of see the foundation true to form and what it would look like in natural lighting, because I know that is definitely very important. It definitely smooths out the skin really nicely, and it is definitely plumping. I would say that is 100% accurate. I get quite deep kind of lines here on my forehead. So that is always a problem area for me, and I find that so many foundations will sink into my forehead lines, whereas I haven't had really any issues with this. So yeah, that is a huge plus for me. So this is really good, and therefore I think it will be quite nice for mature skins as well. If you want to just smooth out the skin, plump out the skin, then I do think this is a really good option. Okay, so I'm going to do the rest of my makeup. We'll link everything else that I'm using down below in the description box, so if you are interested then make sure to look down there. for all additional info. And yeah, we will come back and I will let you know my final thoughts. So the rest of my makeup has been applied now, and I do think the foundation still looks really nice and fresh. I have set it with a tiny bit of powder, and I've also used a little bit of highlight as well. I am just going to use a tiny bit of my Too Faced Hangover setting spray, just because I really like the additional glow that this gives to the skin. Yeah, I just really like the extra glow, extra bit of hydration, and it does help to lock your makeup in a tiny bit longer. I would say that setting spray is probably more geared towards making your skin look a bit more refreshed rather than keeping your makeup on all day. Okay, let's talk about the foundation. Even though it wasn't what I was expecting, I do still really like it, and I think it's a really good option for every day. It's obviously a tiny bit more expensive than the original True Match foundation, which again was a little bit of a surprise. It's only a few pound extra, and obviously it's kind of Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend at the moment, so if you were interested, I'm sure you can get a few pound off if you have a little browse online. I'm sure there's loads of discount codes flying around. Yeah, the shade range is obviously quite disappointing. The shade I have here is 2-3 Light. As you saw when I was applying it, it still leaned quite warm. I have used a bit of my Rose Inc concealer. So this is quite a bit lighter. So I have used that just to help even out my skin a little bit more and help it just match my neck. But yeah, other than that, I do like it. Packaging, I much prefer the original foundation packaging. I wish this came in a pump or a squeezy tube or something. I just think the dropper is a little bit redundant, doesn't really work properly, and it just gets a bit messy when you're trying to dip back in or kind of close the lid. It just scoops everywhere. The coverage for me, I would say, is definitely light to medium. You can build it up, however, the more layers you do, the more kind of glow it gives, and I do think after 2 layers you might start to look borderline oily, yeah, less glowy, more oily. But I do think that it does layer nicely on top of itself because it is such a thin formula. So that's my thoughts on the L'Oreal True Skin Tinted Serum Foundation. I really hope that you enjoyed. If there's any other foundations that you're really loving at the moment, do let me know down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!